Okay, gang. It's your boy Angelo Kimbro, and I'm back with another reaction video. And today I'm gonna be reacting to 2022, the craziest year in wrestling history, by Wrestling Gifts. If you guys enjoy this video, smash the like button, comment down below what videos you guys would like to see, and smash that subscribe button. And let me know if I got any wrestling fans, cause I'll continue to react to some wrestling content. But let's get straight to this video, y'all.
2022 is officially almost over, and what a wild ass year this was. From Drake dropping the Oots Oots album to Will Smith tweaking, England losing their queen and the World Cup in the same year, to even Tom Brady choosing football over his wife and kids. This was a year where just when you thought everything was already out of hand, it got 10 times more out of hand the very next day, and it was no different in the world of professional wrestling. Wrestling is and always will be a cracked out industry. The wrestling world is very familiar to crazy news, but this year wasn't your standard wrestling year with a few big stories. Nah, this was one of the craziest years in wrestling history of all time. And now that it's almost over, and now as the new year approaches, and now that a lot has settled down, it's time to go back and take a look at just how crazy this year truly was in the wrestling world. Look back at the
This year wrestling was crazy as hell. If y'all watch, like I said, if y'all watch any wrestling, y'all would know a lot happened in WWE, a lot happened in AEW. A lot of people debuted in AEW. Triple H and Stephanie McMahon and Nick Khan took over in WWE. Vince McMahon quit. You feel me? So Triple H brought back a lot of people. So a lot of shit happened this year in wrestling, man. And this was only like 6 months ago, because he left in like June, July. Vince McMahon left in like June or July. So a lot has happened since then, bro.
stories, the moments, the drama, the controversies, the epic moments, and everything else. Ladies and gentlemen, it's your boy Pav, and it's time to take a look back at the year 2022 in professional wrestling and just how insane it was. Let's get straight into it. We begin in January, because of course, the very first day of the new year set the tone for just how fucked the year was gonna be. On January 1st, the WWE held a pay-per-view titled Day 1, and instead of everything going on as planned, the main event of Roman Reigns vs. Brock Lesnar for the title was cancelled the day of due to Roman Reigns getting COVID. And instead of just moving that match to the Rumble and pretending like nothing happened, the entire road to WrestleMania was flipped turned upside down like an episode of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Brock Lesnar was added to the Raw title match that had absolutely nothing to do with them. There was no correlation whatsoever, and they turned the Fatal 4-Way into the 5-Way and made it the main event of the show. And of course, Brock Lesnar just pulled up, clapped everyone in his way.
When I tell you everybody was pissed when this happened, I mean everybody was fucking mad as hell, including myself. Because if y'all know, they pushed Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns like it's John Cena in 2012, 2014. Back up, 2008, 2007. That's how much they're pushing Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns. Nope. Well, that's how much Vince McMahon was. Triple H doing a whole new thing, but Vince McMahon was pushing Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar like those the only wrestlers that's on both shows.
A Raw, SmackDown, it didn't matter. He casually became the WWE champion like it was nothing. And what a change of plans for the very first show of the year. The original plan for the show was for Seth Rollins to walk out as the Raw champion and win that fatal 4-way, and Brock Lesnar was supposed to beat Roman Reigns and end the 500-day reign to set up the WrestleMania match, but nah. This was 2022 and the precedent was set on the very first day that from here on out, it didn't matter what the plan was because nothing was going to go according to plan this year. And day one wasn't the only batshit crazy pay-per-view in January. No. How could we ever forget the lovely Royal Rumble? The night where 28 days after Lesnar won the title, he ended up losing it. And then the same night ended up winning the Royal Rumble to set up Brock versus Roman at WrestleMania again, as is tradition. But the thing was, Brock winning wasn't really the issue because we all know that was happening whether we liked it or not. The issue was, though, the entire Royal Rumble match absolutely sucked. The 22 Rumble ended up being the worst Royal Rumble in a very long time. This was a Rumble that was a definition of boring, and ladies and gentlemen, this was a Rumble that was so bad. This Rumble was so bad that the man who produced it was quietly let go. And you would assume it's probably just some random bozo, right, who got fired. Like, who could it possibly be? Nah, the boss fired his son, Shane McMahon, because the Rumble was that bad. And yo, I'm gonna be honest, I totally get it. Shane McMahon was shameless on this night. Not only did he produce the Rumble match that absolutely sucked, the man put himself to be number 28 in the match. Yes, the 52-year-old self-proclaimed MMA god who was sweating like a teenager whose mom was going through a safari history ended up being in the final 3 of the Royal Rumble. What the fuck? Do you know how bad someone has to mess up for their own dad to fire them? Pay-per-views in January in the WWE were not it. But as we proceed, one of the biggest stories of the year, the first true huge bomb of the year, also began in January.
Yeah, January 2022 for WWE at least was ass. Like, the Royal Rumble, like he said, the Royal Rumble was trash. Day one was trash. Like,
every search you make. It was a month we found out Cody Rhodes wasn't happy on the other side over at AEW. We found out that there was a contract dispute between Tony Khan and Cody Rhodes, and this was a strange time which included Cody Rhodes pulling up to an episode of Dynamite and cutting one of the weirdest promos of his life. A promo someone described as, "That was the greatest promo I barely understood." And by using metaphors and big words, basically Cody told the world how AEW wasn't the place for him anymore. The place that he helped build wasn't for him anymore. He then goes on to have a 5-star match the next week like it was nothing, and then just vanishes from AEW. The man who dreamt, slept, and bled AEW was gone. And of course, the internet just went mental as reports about Cody Rhodes was officially leaving AEW came out, and this wasn't a storyline. All hell broke loose online. It was something that sounded so crazy and just did not seem real. Even I myself couldn't comprehend the thought of Cody Rhodes leaving the place that he helped build, the place he was an EVP at, and the thing was, nobody had any idea of what was happening. And as the rumors got stronger and stronger, it came out that this man right here, who it seemed like his main mission in life was to be anti-WWE, might go back to the WWE. And once that happened, the world was just in a frenzy. Every week it became an event on Monday to watch Raw just to see if Cody was coming back. We were seated every week in front of our TV like how Evolution was seated at that one NBA game back in the day. We were just hoping that this was the week that Cody's music would hit and the rumors were true. And every week the best part was that WWE was teasing it as well. Even though at one point it was almost confirmed, it was one of those things that we just had to see to believe it. This was the one return that just seemed too good to be true until it happened.
Wrestling has more than one royal family.
And not on a Raw, not on a SmackDown, not on Saturday Morning Slam, but the man came back at WrestleMania. On the grandest stage of them all, Homelander was finally back home. In front of 77,000 fans, Cody Rhodes was back in the WWE. And this was the very first moment where it hit us. The simulation was glitched. The fact that this man left as Stardust, left as a nobody, left as someone that everyone considered wasted potential, came back in front of 77,000 people going absolutely nuts, and just had a banger with Seth Rollins and came off as the biggest star in the company. First night back, and just like that, an iconic WrestleMania moment forever, and 2022 will forever go down as the year Cody Rhodes came back to the WWE. And the most wild part was, it wasn't even the only unbelievable return that night. Back in February, rumors and reports came out that Stone Cold Steve Austin was coming back at WrestleMania. And just like the Cody rumors, it did not seem real. Reports of a 57-year-old Stone Cold Steve Austin with a surgically repaired neck after being out of the ring for 19 years, after declining countless matches over the years, finally wrestling a match in 2022. This shit sounded like it was straight out of Reddit fantasy booking. But as the weeks went on, we saw Austin training, and the teases kept getting stronger and stronger, and eventually his appearance even got confirmed. But still, the idea of Austin actually wrestling, it didn't seem real. And the thing was, most people like myself, we were kind of conflicted because we didn't want to see a broken down Austin ruin his legacy. We didn't want to see Austin go out like Undertaker. Thank God he's already bald, because imagine if he had hair and he pulled up and did what Shawn Michaels did in Saudi Arabia. We didn't want to see Austin ruin that last legendary match he had back in 03. We didn't want to see Austin get hurt. We didn't want to see Austin flop. We didn't want to see Austin not be Austin. So we just thought he was probably going to pull up at WrestleMania like every other year, drink some beer, hit a few stunners, and send the crowd home happy, right? Right? Nah, this motherfucker pulled up to WrestleMania and at 57 years old was taking suplexes on the concrete, and the madman actually had a match. Stone Cold Steve Austin, the man who many such as myself thought would never ever unretire for a match ever again, actually had a match in 2022. I thought it was more likely that a broken back Hulk Hogan would come back and try to bullshit his way back in the ring, dude, and go over, brother. But nah, Austin wrestled one more time in one of the most fun and feel-good moments ever. The fact that a 57-year-old legend like Austin came back and did what he did after 19 years off, and the fact that it wasn't depressing, what a moment, man. In one night at WrestleMania, we saw two things we never ever thought we would see: an AEW EVP wrestling at Mania, and Austin wrestling again. Overall, the first few months in the World Wrestling Federation were all over the place, but it all worked out. Triple H officially retired and ended his career due to health issues. Scott Hall passed away. Big E sadly broke his neck live on television and was left almost paralyzed, and we're still hoping he gets back to 100%. Lesnar caught a body in Saudi Arabia, and Roman Reigns became double champ at WrestleMania. As you can see, it was just a wild time in the World Wrestling Federation, but that was just the beginning, because the rest of the year just got 10 times more nuts. But meanwhile, in AEW, 2022 was a year where the company finally felt the heat. AEW started off the year very strong. The CM...
Yeah, when we heard that Stone Cold was coming back, not even coming back, when everyone sat down and watched WrestleMania, I think it was night 2. No, it was night 1. And people, and Kevin Owens was like, I didn't call you here to have an interview with you. I called you here. I called you out to fight. When we heard that, when us wrestling fans heard that, we went ballistic. Because, like he just said, before that, he hasn't wrestled since 2003 at WrestleMania 19. So when we heard that, we was like, oh shit. And the match was actually fire. Go back and watch it if you a wrestling fan and haven't seen it. And then this CM Punk shit, boy.
Punk experiment was going awesome. The man was trying. He was the guy over at AEW. It was the best signing the company had ever made. Hangman Page was the champion. All the fans loved him, and the company overall was just hot. But as the months went by, the drama that would define AEW this year just slowly picked up, and it can all be traced back to when MJF, just weeks after having a true wrestling classic against CM Punk, ended up doing an interview with Ariel Helwani, and nothing was the same after this. MJF in that interview mentioned how he loved what the WWE was doing and how his contract was coming up in 2024 and he would definitely explore his options. Bombs were being dropped, and we knew that if anyone in AEW was allowed to go out and drop bombs on interviews, it was MJF. The issue was, though, Tony Khan never authorized this interview. And this is where the beef between MJF and Tony Khan exploded and became public, all because of this interview. This was where the world learned that MJF wanted to get paid, and everyone knew his contract was going to expire in 2024, but this is where we learned that the man wanted to get paid now. He didn't want to sign an extension, he didn't want to wait for the next contract, he wanted to get money now for the rest of his current contract. And after this, it just kept getting out of hand and eventually exploded at AEW Double or Nothing. After tweets such as this one, after reports that MJF will strongly consider WWE if he didn't get paid now, the day before AEW Double or Nothing live from Las Vegas, MJF no-shows a meet and greet. There are hundreds of fans who paid hundreds of dollars to see him, and they're all left disappointed as MJF does not show up. And next thing you know, there are reports coming out every 15 minutes, reports that MJF might not show up to the pay-per-view tomorrow, and apparently that a flight was booked for MJF to go back home. And this was the same day of the show, just hours before the show was going to go live on pay-per-view. Nobody knew if one of the biggest matches on the show was even going to take place due to the fact that MJF possibly walked out. And the crazy part was, all this happened just a few weeks after, over on the WWE side, Sasha Banks and Naomi walked out of the company for real. Was MJF really walking out on AEW? But it all ends with MJF just an hour or so before the show began, coming back and having the match. It ended up being the opening show of the match, and he walked out as the biggest villain in wrestling. He got his ass beat by Wardlow, and just a few days later, cut the biggest promo of his career. After all that drama, after all that controversy, he pulled up to Dynamite and did the promo that shook the industry. The promo where he called out Tony Khan and begged him to fire him live on TV. And of course, as everyone remembers, then goes even as far as saying, "You fucking mark!" And just like that, just like Cody Rhodes, MJF vanished from AEW. Even though after the promo it was very clear that Tony Khan and MJF's beef was now a part of a storyline, it was still a pretty major situation backstage. And that's what most AEW fans were concerned about back then. But as time went on, as the year went on, it became clear that Khan versus MJF wasn't the major beef backstage in AEW. The whole time it was something else. We just had no idea. And a lot of it reached a new level when CM Punk on that very night at Double or Nothing beat Hangman Page to become world champion of AEW. Back in May at Double or Nothing, when CM Punk became the world champion, it was seen as a landmark night not just for CM Punk, but for AEW as a whole. It was the legendary return that finally culminated in championship gold. It was finally AEW's new face of the company. Their biggest signing, their biggest star, was finally at the top of the mountain. It was the first ever $1 million gate in AEW history. It was no doubt a smashing success. And yes, without a doubt, it was one of the biggest nights of CM Punk's career. But the crazy part is, that night can also be seen as the start of the fall of CM Punk. As the halfway point of 2022 was here, and as insane as the year had been up to that point, nothing will ever top the insanity of June. No doubt the wildest month of me being a wrestling fan in my life. Just a few days after winning the title, the same night MJF shook the wrestling industry, CM Punk breaks his foot, forcing him to miss a few months, and AEW has to set up an interim AEW champion. And he broke it doing a stage dive. The CM Punk dream was slowly becoming the CM Punk nightmare. And this just happened to be the same month that AEW was planning a collaborative pay-per-view with New Japan Pro Wrestling. The issue was, it felt like this pay-per-view was cursed, because once it was announced, every single week leading up to the pay-per-view, it felt like a new wrestler on the AEW roster got injured. But speaking of injuries, or hey, when you think of injuries in the wrestling world in 2012, there is one that defined the year. There's one that was the holy grail, and ladies and gentlemen, you guys already know, June was the
he said 2012. But yeah, what he's about to say, the injury to Cody Rhodes, and he's been out ever since, is just look, y'all.
month that Cody Rhodes pulls up to the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view, walks into the Hell in a Cell against Seth Rollins, takes his jacket off, and every single wrestling fan across the world had their jaw on the...
Do y'all see that, bruh? He tore his pectoral muscle working out. He tore his pectoral muscle, not wrestling, working out.
Floor. Cody Rhodes, looking like a zombie from Black Ops 1, then proceeds to go out there and have a 5-star classic with a torn pec. This was no doubt one of the most gruesome things we have ever seen in a WWE ring. This man was in no shape to wrestle, but for some reason, I don't know what they put in him, I don't know what kind of drugs he was on, but for 30 minutes he went out there and the entire wrestling world was captivated in a way they hadn't been for a long time. Homelander proceeds to drop a classic, he ruins his pec even further, and as a result ends up being out for the rest of the year. But yo, it is hard to find anyone who thinks it wasn't worth it. As big as his WrestleMania return was, in my eyes, this was just as big and this was just as iconic, because Cody Rhodes, in my eyes, became a legend on this night. Over at AEW, though, they did somehow proceed and have the actual Forbidden Door pay-per-view. Despite all the injuries, they were able to pull it off. And to make up for it, to make up for Bryan Danielson and CM Punk, they just sent out a 63-year-old Sting out there, and he started wilding out, doing sentons like a crackhead and all this flippy shit. 2022 was the year that Sting just said YOLO. Forbidden Door turned out to be an amazing show, one of the best pay-per-views of the year, no doubt. But guys, Sting wasn't the only senior citizen that was wildin' in 2022. Ladies and gentlemen, as we all know, it needs no introduction. I don't need to explain it to you. 2022 was the year Vince McMahon finally got clapped.
Transmit on track 2. Okay, we'll still send a code 3.
I said Ric Flair. This nigga said Vince McMahon. But he said Vince McMahon got clapped. I'm dead as hell. But yeah, like I said, Vince McMahon got hit with all these sexual abuse allegations and shit. I think in like June, July.
The man who has gotten away with so many things it never made any sense. The man who truly was the Teflon Don finally got hit. It was the day that the wrestling world stood still. After allegations of misconduct came out that looked very damaging, Vince still no-sold it and pulled up to Raw and SmackDown just to flex because he could, because he felt untouchable. Even though it looked like this was going to be another bullet that Vince McMahon dodged, the 5-star wanted level finally caught up to him, and after millions of dollars in hush money, after being a tag team champion in the office with John Laurinaitis, after a bunch of women came out with some very damaging allegations, the day came where Vince McMahon was forced to step down from the WWE. The same man who we thought would never ever step down, the same man we thought would rather die than not be in control of the company, was officially out of the company. Out of all the crazy things that happened in 2022, all the beef, the drama, the politics, the returns, this has to be it. This takes the cake. This is the most shocking news, maybe not just in this year, maybe in wrestling history. The man himself, the Teflon Don, the man responsible for making wrestling what it is, was gone. And if that wasn't enough for the senior citizens of wrestling wildin' in 2022, of course, we just had to have Mr. Ric Flair, Mr. Almost Died a few years ago, Mr. I have a pacemaker in my chest, Mr. I should not be wrestling, pulled up to Nashville, Tennessee, and at 73 years old, but more like 93 years old, he wrestled, bled, groaned and moaned, and even faked a heart attack. And since it's Ric Flair, he definitely cried in supposedly his last wrestling match. To this day, this is still just the weirdest thing I have ever watched in my life. I can't believe that people paid money, that people streamed this, that people bought a pay-per-view just to see a 73-year-old Ric Flair do this. What the f***? was 2022. As the summer continued, when Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns episode 954 was announced, the wrestling world groaned like Ric Flair did in his match. At SummerSlam this year, they took a match that nobody wanted to see and they made it a must-see spectacle that had the most just cracked out visual ever. A match that nobody wanted to see ended up being a match that was filled with teases and dramas, tractors, and honestly, ladies and gentlemen, just pure straight up fuckery. No doubt a defining moment of the year, like the visual of the ring looking like this, being sideways and Roman Reigns.
Yeah, SummerSlam was something crazy this year, man. This match was something different. Honestly, people say it's their better match. Out of all these years, this is their best match.
Just slipping and following. This is gonna be something that lives on forever. This is gonna be like the next generation's ring break moment. So yeah, 2022 was the year where a wrestling match ended like this. SummerSlam also happened to feature the one-on-one debut of a special somebody named Logan Paul. After making a celebrity appearance back at WrestleMania, which was super solid, Logan Paul was back after signing a contract with the WWE. Even though he held his own at WrestleMania, when he entered the ring at SummerSlam, he arrived to a pretty dead reaction. But by the time the match was over, he had the crowd going absolutely nuts for every single thing he did. This was the year that Logan Paul proved that he is a professional wrestler through and through, and he legitimately proved that he was built for this. Who would have ever guessed? But when I think of the summer of 2022, the one man I think deserves mad respect is no doubt Jon Moxley over at AEW. When the company got destroyed by the injuries I mentioned before, Jon Moxley is the guy who stepped up and he was so clutch for AEW, he was like prime Kobe out there. Just like during the pandemic when they needed a champion, when they needed someone to carry the company, it was Jon Moxley. Same thing in the summer of 2022. When they needed someone to be their ace, to go out there every week and be the guy, Jon Moxley came clutch. By August of 2022, the Vince regime was out and Triple H was in the cut, and since then, he has been the man running the ship over at the Federation. And listen, no doubt the man has some faults, no doubt it hasn't been perfect. He definitely has a weird obsession with some very, very mid talent, but I gotta admit, and you must admit, the product has had so many things that have been revitalized in the past few months. Guys, they finally say wrestling again on the air. Yo, no wonder Vince looks like this. This man probably has a heart attack every time he turns on the broadcast. This guy's actually transforming into a goblin. But yeah, the product since then hasn't been perfect, but there is so much more cohesion and everything seems like a part of a bigger plan. And one of the best shows of the year was put on by the WWE, and this was all with Triple H at the Realm when the company went over to the UK and had their first pay-per-view over there in over 2 decades. It was Clash at the Castle, and it was the night we saw Gunter and Sheamus tear the house down for the IC title of all things, putting prestige back on the title. The women had a crazy 6-woman tag match, and it was a night where Roman Reigns and Drew McIntyre finally met in the ring once again. It was one of the biggest matches of the year, one of the most hyped up matches of the year. It was Drew McIntyre in the UK, Roman Reigns
and where Solo Sikoa, aka Roman Reigns' cousin, debuted.
Double champion, coming in undefeated for 2 years, 730 days as champion, and it was in front of an electric crowd. They had a big time, big money main event, and ladies and gentlemen, 2022 was the year Roman Reigns reached another level. Now this might be controversial because a lot of people want Roman to be a different type of champion than he is, but yo, just look at it like this. Even though he was already champion for a year plus coming into this year, this was no doubt the year that he reached another level and officially became an all-time great in my eyes. Roman Reigns only wrestled 15 times on television in 2022, just 15 times. But that just made it that much more epic when he did. That just made it that much more special when we did see him in the ring. He officially became an attraction this year. He officially became the true big time draw. Whether he was defending the title on SmackDown against Riddle or against Drew in the UK, when Roman Reigns was wrestling in 2022, it was an event. It was a big deal. It was a spectacle. It was must-watch TV, and that can't be understated. And whether you like it or not, whether you want him to be on SmackDown every week and have a match every week, at the end of the day, this just works for Roman Reigns and everything he's trying to do, because all this just made his matches and every moment he was involved in that much more special. It made everything more special. It made his matches more intense. sense. Like, even though you knew deep down throughout the entire year he wasn't gonna lose to Lesnar, Riddle, or Drew, or Logan Paul. Yes, Logan Paul, the moments felt so special and so big that you couldn't get help but lost in the match because you weren't getting Roman Reigns in a match often. Roman Reigns in 2022 officially reached God mode for real. He felt like a pay-per-view fighter that only wrestled when the lights were on bright. Even though he already was, he just became an even bigger time player. And when I think of the last few months in the WWE, it is no secret that one of the main things I think about is Roman Reigns versus Logan Paul in Saudi Arabia, for some divine reason being a 5-star classic. Who would have ever thought that Logan Paul versus Roman Reigns would happen, would headline a pay-per-view, would headline a stadium show, and who would have ever thought it would be a classic? And who would have ever thought that 2022 would be the year that Sami Zayn finally became the most over guy on the roster? Everyone loves Sami Zayn. Everyone has always wanted this.
Sami Zayn is literally the he's more over than Roman at this point. If we like when we see the bloodline, Roman, Solo, Sikoa, Jay, and Jimmy, we also see Sami Zayn, and people are literally out their seat cheering for Sami Zayn.
And hope for this, but what started off as a temporary comedy act with the bloodline slowly developed into the most must-watch segment on TV every single week. Sami Zayn's breakout with the Usos and the bloodline has been the best thing going for the WWE since it began. The ratings go up every time they come out, the views on YouTube go crazy when they're uploaded, social media is buzzing every single week when they interact, and they have handled the storyline perfectly. Sami Zayn has killed it so much in the past few months that people cannot wait. People are begging for the inevitable Sami Zayn versus Roman Reigns match, which no doubt, there is no doubt about it, that match is gonna tear the house down. After a crazy 9 months or so in the WWE, the later half of the year has really settled down with drama. I mean, everything after Vince McMahon retiring was always gonna pale in comparison, and their settling down includes Logan Paul wrestling in the main event of a pay-per-view. That just proves how insane this year truly has been, but without a doubt, even the last few months we've had some great moments as mentioned, and the news just keeps on coming and coming. I mean, hell, we just found out that the last SmackDown of the year is gonna have John Cena make his return. The first time since June when he appeared for his 20th anniversary, we're gonna see John Cena back in the WWE ring. And remember how Sasha Banks left back in May? Most people thought that she would be back, maybe by SummerSlam, maybe her and Naomi would be back by War Games, maybe by, the end of the year. Well, it turns out she's gonna do something that nobody saw coming. One of the biggest female wrestling stars in North America is going to Japan. She is about to change the game like no one has ever done before in her space. But anyway, before we end things, how can we forget about All Elite Wrestling? After Cody Rhodes left, after the MJF situation exploded, somehow things in AEW exploded even more. Where do we even begin? After surviving the MJF situation, after putting on the collab show by some divine miracle, after Punk getting injured and Moxley saving the day, it all led to AEW All Out in September. When All Out went off the air, it was looked at as a huge success. CM Punk was back in the ring, won the championship, and was truly back in the company. Kenny Omega was also back and turned all the way up. And last but not least, MJF was back on TV for the first time since June, and his contract situation seemed to be all sorted out. And to close the show, they set up the match that the world wanted to see, the biggest match AEW could offer, and that was MJF versus CM Punk for the title. The third match in their trilogy for the AEW championship. It was going to be a huge match that was going to do record business for the company. Like I said, All Out was a blockbuster smash hit, another $1 million in gate revenue. The wrestling world was buzzing, everything was perfect, and after a tough few months filled with injuries and all this drama and contract situations, everything was back on track for AEW. Until this man turned the company upside down. After one of the most successful shows in the company's history that he ended as champion, with the boss right beside him at the post-show press conference, CM Punk turned All Friends Wrestling into a toxic Call of Duty lobby. The man was injured, battered, broken, and he was pissed off, and this guy put the entire AEW roster on blast, calling people like Hangman Page dumb calling out the Young Bucks, calling out Kenny Omega. This man was like AIDS in the 80s and nobody was safe. This wasn't some storyline, this wasn't some angle, this was CM Punk just going off calling MJF an idiot, this guy an idiot, that guy an idiot. Yo, you name it. If you haven't seen it, please watch this because he probably might have called you an idiot as well. CM Punk was back and he was pissed, and with his boss sitting right next to him so confused, the reporters are just there like, yo, what is going on? This man was just letting it go. He was pissed off at the Elite because there had been a lot of reports and negative things coming out about CM Punk over at AEW, and he felt that it was the Elite leaking things out to reporters and the press to the public, including how apparently CM Punk was the reason that his former friend Colt Cabana was no longer on television and got demoted, how there was an anti-CM Punk agenda in AEW and everyone was jealous of him, and how nobody wanted him there, but he was still the best that the company had to offer. This man was bringing up receipts and everything, talking about how back in the day in a promo, Hangman Page went off script and threw shots at him, and now he was just letting it all out. CM Punk felt everyone at AEW except Tony Khan basically hated him, so he went out blasting, and it ended with him saying, if anyone has a problem, come see me. As reporters were there speechless, as Tony Khan, his boss, didn't know what the hell to do, CM Punk left, and let's just say that people definitely came to see him. Yo, it got real quick, and before you know it, reports were coming out that there was a fight backstage. Kenny Omega, Young Bucks, Ace Steel, CM Punk. It was a straight TDM match back there. Out of nowhere, All Out suddenly became Brawl Out. Just when wrestling in 2022 couldn't get more insane, the biggest stars in AEW had a fist fight backstage after one of their most successful shows of all time, with chairs being thrown around, apparently dogs were being caught in crossfire, people were biting each other, Brawl Out just went down. And of course, as you can imagine, AEW had a huge problem on their hands. Their biggest stars had just tore the locker room down with a fist fight, and to this day, we don't know exactly what happened. And the thing is, we won't know for a long time. With NDAs and other investigations, after this, titles were stripped, people were suspended, and this was as serious as it could be. Something that nobody ever expected in AEW. AEW's mission was to be the total opposite of a typical wrestling promotion. What they never ever wanted to happen happened. Politics and drama destroyed the locker room. CM Punk was suspended, the Elite were suspended, ACO was fired, and everything was changed. Literally in AEW, it went from, oh hey, everything is back to normal, to what do we do now, in a span of an hour. In a 1-year span, CM Punk was signed and became the biggest draw in AEW. He was their ace, he was their face, he was their most pushed talent, he drew ratings, he sold merch, he was going to be on the cover of their damn video game. And it was clear that Tony Khan wanted this, he believed in them, and he wanted to make CM Punk the face of AEW. But whether right or wrong, CM Punk went out blasting like Tony Montana at the end of Scarface. And in a 1-year span, we saw the rise and fall of CM Punk in AEW. And hindsight being 2020, it was bound to happen. CM Punk was definitely the face of AEW, but he was the face because of Tony Khan, and it was a great business decision, no doubt. But if you go back, the signs were always there. A lot of the talent never wanted him there. From little things like Eddie Kingston's comments and promos to Hangman's comments to the leaks, Punk was the enemy to a lot of people backstage. People who supported Colt Cabana, people who supported Hangman Page and didn't want to see him lose the title that fast to CM Punk, people who had issues with CM Punk all the way back in 05 or 04, they still held the grudges. And while I do think CM Punk could have handled it better, it was just bound to happen. Everything just caught up and led to this. All Out ended in Brawl Out, and AEW hasn't been the same since. AEW ends 2022 in a very interesting position. Now, MJF is the face of the company, and rightfully so. He is the champion, and he is the man, and he is pure awesome. But AEW has lost a lot of momentum over the year. They still put on decent television and still have an amazing roster, and it should be no problem getting back to where they were 365 days ago, but things are very different than how they were 365 days ago. But somehow, someway, the WWE is ending 2022 as hot. They're selling out arenas, they're doing big numbers, and it's something that is pretty strange to see because the company hasn't been this hot in a business perspective in a very long time. And just like AEW, the WWE is so different now compared to how it was. Big numbers, and it's something that is pretty strange to see because the company hasn't been this hot in a business perspective.
Royal Rumble 2023 6 box office record. They sold a lot of tickets for that show. That show better be good, bro.
effective in a very long time. And just like AEW, the WWE is so different now compared to how it was 365 days ago. Hell, wrestling overall is just so different than it was a year ago. As you can see, 2022 was just insanity, and there is so much stuff that I didn't even mention. Bray Wyatt came back, ROH is alive again under Tony Khan, and they're having their own pay-per-views. There is so much stuff that happened that this video, if I mentioned everything, would have been 4 hours long. This year will no doubt go down in the history books as a game-changing year in wrestling. I've been a fan of wrestling for over 20 years, and this year was just different. Every week, the unexpected was happening. News and headlines got so out of hand that at first we questioned everything, but by the end of the year, everything just seemed possible. The drama, the politics, the surprises, the matches, everything. It was just unbelievable. Like I said at the beginning of the video, 2022 was no doubt one of the craziest years in wrestling history. And if this is what's gonna bleed over to 2023, I can't even imagine how insane it's gonna get. From Cody to Austin to Vince retiring to Brawl Out to MJF to the matches, the moments and everything, all I gotta say is, what a time it was to be alive. And to end off this video, to end off the longest video of my career so far, ladies and gentlemen, I present to you my personal wrestling awards for the year. The WWE pay-per-view of the year goes to WrestleMania Night 1. The AEW pay-per-view of the year, no doubt in my opinion, Forbidden Door. When it comes to the feud of the year, there's only one option when I think of 2022. CM Punk versus MJF, and I pray that we somehow get the third match in the trilogy. My personal favorite moment of the year, it's simple, man. Cody at the Hell in a Cell, need I say more? And just to tie things in, my favorite wrestler of the year in 2022, I never thought I would have said this last year, but it's also Cody Rhodes. And then Sixth Man of the Year goes to Jon Moxley for stepping up off the bench when AEW needed him the most. Workhorse of the Year goes to Seth Rollins. Didn't matter if he was in the main event, the opening match, or the mid-card, this man put all his effort in there and he made the best of what he was given. So shout out to Seth Rollins. And lastly, for the MVP of the year, come on, it has to be Roman Reigns. But you know what? MJF is a very, very close second. Anyway guys, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Sorry for the 40-minute video. I really hope you guys still enjoyed it. It's your boy Pav, aka Wrestling Gifts. Thank you guys so much for the support over the year. This was my favorite year I've ever had on wrestling YouTube. I swear to God, I never expected my third year to be my favorite and to be my best year, but the sky's the limit, not just for me, but for you too. I hope you guys crush it in 2023, but thank you for all the support. Ladies and gentlemen, it's your boy Pav, aka Wrestling Gifts. I'll see you guys later. I'll see you guys very soon, but for now, I'm out. Later, guys.
Yeah, y'all. 2022 in wrestling was real crazy. Stone Cold returned, had a match with Kevin Owens. Vince McMahon had his little scandal going on still. He's trying to return to wrestling, and people in WWE don't want it to happen. Cody Rhodes returned, wrestled with a torn pec. Seth Rollins still doing his thing. Shit going on at AEW with Cody, with CM Punk. Yeah, it's wrestling in 2022. Wrestling in 2022 has been crazy. It was crazy. I don't know what 2023 gonna bring. But that's the end of this video. If you guys enjoyed it, smash the like button. Comment down below other videos you guys would like to see. And smash that subscribe button and turn on your post notification bell so you never miss another upload. I'll see you on my next video, and I'm out. Peace.